All right, for rolling out, I'm Rashad Milligan. I'm here with Raianna Brown from Georgia Tech. If you didn't see the post, she posted something on social media a couple of weeks back of her kneeling during the national anthem last year before a Georgia Tech game when she was a member of the dance team. Raianna, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
Great. Now, what was exactly going through your mind when you made the decision that you wanted to kneel before the game?
Okay. So I made the decision that I was going to kneel about a couple of days before the game. Terrence Crutcher was killed by law enforcement in Oklahoma, and for me, that was the last straw. If there could have been another last straw, that was the other last straw. And so I reached out to my coach because I had been following Colin Kaepernick's protest, and I wanted to stand to kneel in solidarity with him. And I reached out to my coach and told her what my plan was and had a pretty engaging conversation with her about it. And then also she connected me with the Athletic Association PR team just so I had resources in case there was any media reaching out to me at the time. I had people that I could talk to who understood how to manage that, especially as a student athlete. And so the day of the game, I was super nervous. I was freaking out. I'm pretty sure I messed up the dance before. When they do the anthem, I messed up that dance so many times, and I usually don't mess up that dance. But I kind of centered myself by thinking about why I was kneeling. And when I just was doing the physical act of kneeling, I would say to myself the names of people, who I knew who had been killed by police brutality and racial injustices in the United States. So from Emmett Till to Sandra Bland to Eric Garner to Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Arlton Sterling, all these names, that's how I would center myself and ground myself in what I was doing.
Right. Now, how have these past couple of days and weeks been since the picture has gone so viral?
Yeah, it's been crazy. I was super surprised that it got so much traction this time, especially because it was last year. A lot of people were confused at first. They thought it was from this weekend's game, but I actually started kneeling October 1st of last year and kneeled all the way through the rest of the season. But I think now that there's been so much more attention on the take a knee movement that's why it's gained so much traction this time. And it's exciting to me that it has so much attention because now there's a lot more people engaging in the conversation and being involved in understanding this type of issue that's going on. But at the same time, it also saddens me because it's upsetting that this is still an issue. In an ideal world, it would be where the protest happened and significant social change occurred, and then it wasn't necessarily something that held as much weight anymore, but it does. It holds the same weight or even more now, these protests going on. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right. So now that you have this platform, what do you kind of look to do with, everybody looking at you?
Well, I am also, in addition to being a student at Georgia Tech, I'm also a professional dancer and choreographer. So most likely I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing, which is I've always done a lot of work in my community, whether it's from serving as the African American Student Union at Georgia Tech president and organizing focused events, engaging in necessary conversations, or organizing community service around the community, because we do go to Georgia Tech, but we are in Metro Atlanta, in Fulton County, where a lot of service is needed. But with my dance company, Rain Dance Theater, which I co-founded in January, our goal is to create art that leads people to think, engage, and join in the conversation about social change, specifically in regard to Black people. So the work that we're working on now is called Inhuman. It premieres in November here, actually, at Georgia Tech at the First Center for the Arts. We're part of the 2017-2018 season. And that show, it's like my baby. It means so much to me. But the show is called Inhuman because it brings into question what happens to a person, a people, a race, a group based on religion, ethnicity, sexuality when they're denied their humanity, and what that does to the type of art that they create, what that does to them mentally, physically, politically. And so that work is basically the artistic version of my activism. And I think it's really important to create responsible art. One of my favorite quotes by Nina Simone is, "It's an artist's duty to reflect the times." And so I guess just continuing to get people to engage in this civil discourse by kind of bursting their bubble a little bit. If you aren't aware of what's going on in the United States, especially in regards to people of color, the show will kind of force you to be aware of it. And if you are aware, it'll force you to be think a little bit deeper about what's really going on and how it's affecting not only older people, but also younger people who are entering adulthood.
And how important do you think it is to kind of start your own thing? You know, you starting your own dance company, hosting these shows. How important do you think that is?
I think it's super important. I've always been very, I guess, entrepreneurial mindset. I never really wanted to work for like a big corporation like my whole life. But I think it's important, especially as an artist, and I'm just so thankful to have the opportunity to be able to do this at 22, because that is very young for a choreographer to have a dance company that they can like set work on. And our dance company has 27 dancers, which is also kind of unheard of for a first show. And it's at the First, which seats 1,000 people, which is also unheard of for a first show. So it's a lot of pressure, but it's good pressure. And I think it's important to kind of take those risks when you're young and you can, and if you have the energy and the desire to do it, then just like go for it. And so in that way, it is really nice to like have something that I started with my friends that we can kind of call our own, and mold as we need to, and mold from a younger perspective, because that's kind of lacking right now in the Atlanta dance community. There's not a lot of young Black women choreographers, especially not my age. I think there might be like 3 or 4 of us, so it's a small knit group.
So now, you know, you said before we started recording, you said the Black population here is about 6%. Mm-hmm. How was that kind of being an activist and the leader of the Black Student Union and all that at a school like Georgia Tech?
It was most definitely, I don't know, I think it kind of sparked me to be even more active. So my parents did a really, really good job of raising me and my sisters, shout out to them, and to be very socially conscious and socially like just and doing community service. Like they always instilled that when we were younger. So we were required when we were younger to go to community service with our parents. And then when we got older, we wanted to because we were required to when we were like 5 and like 7. I remember I always used to want to go to Habitat for Humanity with my mom, but I wasn't allowed because I was too young. And so then coming to Georgia Tech, well, I went to predominantly white middle school, high school, and so now college. So it wasn't necessarily a shock for me in that way. I danced at predominantly African-American dance studios, so I kind of got a nice little gist of, I guess, both worlds. Yeah, it was a good balance. And then coming to Georgia Tech was kind of like the same as my high school, but I always describe going to Georgia Tech and being the Black community as being in high school in college. So the Black community is like your like 900 student high school or 1,000 student high school, and then the college is like the big campus college life, which is really nice because you have such a close-knit community, but at the same time, it can be very difficult when you are the only Black face in your class. Like I have my, manufacturing class. I'm the only Black student and the only Black woman, of course, I'm the only Black student, which can be kind of hard sometimes because you're looking around like, oh, well, nobody looks like me. Which sometimes can be really hard on you, but at the same time, I try to like turn everything into a positive way, and so it has made me even more of an activist, I guess, and made it even more urgent, kind of, to be so present with my activism on campus. So serving as the president of African American Student Union, I believe that was my junior year. So that was when I kneeled, actually, was when I was serving as president. It was really nice to be able to plan events. One of my favorite events that me and my mom like started was the Super Science Day that we do with now it's called Barack Obama Elementary School, which is pretty cool. And it's like a community service event where we bring Georgia Tech students, any students that want to go can, but mostly Black students come because it's during Black History Month. And we bring them to the school to do like simple science experiments like Alka-Seltzer rockets, making slime, stuff like that with the kids. But it's one of my favorite events because I think it's important for the kids at the school to see there are black students at Georgia Tech studying engineering. There are these students doing these things that look like them. Because for me, that was so helpful when I was younger, to see my mom working in a lab, to see my dad as working as an engineering consultant and moving up in corporate America, and to see my sisters go to Georgia Tech, because I have two older sisters that went here as well, and meeting their friends when I was younger. So I was constantly surrounded by all this black excellence, and I think that is one of the things that I really tried to do with my presidency as African American Student Union, was to kind of pay it backwards, or I guess let's pay it forward, not sure, to younger students who, may not have thought that they could do engineering at Georgia Tech, or that there weren't black students here. But also at the same time, it does make it a little bit scarier, especially when I was kneeling, to be kind of by yourself. Because that day, the day that I kneeled the first time, there was actually a tailgate by one of the fraternities on campus. So there weren't a lot of black students at the game when I was kneeling. It's two of my friends, and then my parents were in the president's box, so they weren't close either. I was like, okay, well, hopefully nothing happens. And that the same goes for anytime I'm more vocal about black students' needs on campus. A lot of times you are advocating and you are educating a lot more, because people just don't know. But I try to be as understanding about that as I can. Because, like I said, if it doesn't affect your reality, you just don't think about it, which makes sense. I think we all do that in different ways. As far as being a Muslim American, that doesn't necessarily affect my reality, but I have family who are. So then I try to have conversations with them about that and understand more about what's going on with them, because it's different when you're looking on your social media and you see people who look like you being killed versus when you see people who look like, oh, that kid in my class is black. It's just a completely different reality. So it's important to be able to engage in those conversations, which can also be exhausting, but it's worth it.
So nowadays it seems like, with activism and social media kind of mixed together, social media, the trends go so fast. So what do you want to do, or what do you want to say to the people after your moment, to make sure that this isn't just one moment?
I think for non-people of color, I think it's really important whether or not you agreed with the photo or not, but especially people say, oh, I stand in support with you, I really appreciate this means a lot, to bring action to your activism, because it's very different to like a picture on Instagram or to put the praise hands up and be woo, good job, than to be a real ally. So that means educating yourself on the origins of the national anthem. Before I kneeled, I made sure to do my research on what the full anthem actually is. A lot of people don't know that. And also why it's sung or played at sporting events. The history behind the police system in general, what are its actual origins? So do your research on stuff like that. And then I think whether you agree or not, you'll be more informed, and then you can have more, I always say have engaging conversations and listen. Listening is so important. I spoke on a panel actually yesterday where a teacher was asking, well, I have conversations all the time, but I'm not really getting anywhere. She's what is your advice about that? And my advice was to also listen, because we have conversations, but a lot of times things just go in one ear out the other, because you're right. So I'm correct, and I'll listen to what you're saying, I guess, but I'm not really gonna hear it. But listen to what people are saying, and then you can begin to understand what the other side is thinking. And then as far as people of color who stand in support, I think that it's important to recognize that not everyone is going to participate in social justice and social activism in the same way. So everybody doesn't have to kneel in order to be socially just or to be an activist, because maybe they just don't feel comfortable, or maybe that's not what their spirit or their motives are telling them. But at the same time, they are participating in social change in their own way. So some people like to work more behind closed doors. I tend to be more of upfront, out in your face type person, but everyone, you need all those people on the spectrum. You need the people who just joined the movement yesterday because they're mad at the president. You need people who saw somebody tweet it that's famous and was like, oh, this sounds cool. I think I should agree with this. Like, you need all those people. I try not to judge why people engage in social change, and so that would also be my advice. Like, don't kind of focus on yourself. So how are you affecting the movement? How are you moving America forward in a way that's positive? And especially for people who want to engage in social activism and engage in social change, like, most likely you're going to be scared. Like, I was freaking out. I was shaking in my boots. Literally, we wear boots. I was shaking. But it's okay. Sometimes you have to put yourself on the line when you're trying to stand up for something that's bigger than yourself. So it's okay if you're nervous. You just have to try and take that first step. And like, one of my favorite groups of people in history are the Little Rock Nine, and also Ruby Bridges. And so whenever I get nervous about standing up for people of color or saying the uncomfortable thing in a room, people who don't look like me, I try to think about their courage that they had to demonstrate when they were integrating schools, especially Ruby Bridges. She was so young. And that just, then I'm like, well, this isn't that bad. I can do this. There won't be people screaming at me, like grown people standing outside screaming at me and throwing stuff at me, hopefully. And so, and you may be backlash. You may hit some backlash from people who don't agree with you. Like, I've gotten like crazy emails and like comments. I just block people on social media. It's fine. But most of the time, the positive support that you'll receive is so much more than that, because people may not feel comfortable being the first one to do it, but if they see you do it, then maybe, just maybe, either you'll spark something in their head or they'll join in with you. But either way, you've made a change in some way. Either you made them mad and they had to figure out why they're mad, or you made them sad and they had to figure out why they're sad, or you made them happy and they're like, well, why am I happy? How can I move this further? How can I not just be happy but be part of the change? So that would be my last thing. Oh, also come see Inhuman in November. Rain Dance.
Plug.
Check it out. You know, you got
Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, it's here in Atlanta. Tickets are on sale at the First Center for the Arts. We're over halfway sold out, so get your tickets soon.
Support Raianna Brown. She's more than just a meme. She's an activist, an entrepreneur, visionary artist. For Rolling Out and from Georgia Tech, I'm wearing the same thing. It seems like every time I sit down at Georgia Tech, I wear the same outfit for an interview, so there's that.
Okay, it's your fly. It's your fly.
Right. I guess so. Like, this is my Georgia Tech sit-down outfit.
Exactly.
But from Georgia Tech and for Rolling Out, I'm Rashad Milligan.